All right. Happy Friday, guys. It's the Chrisman commentary presented. No, it's the other way around. It's the last word presented by Chrisman commentary. You'd think I'd get it right by now, but here we are. It's day 2 of the Masters. So for everybody tuning in thinking you were going to miss the golf because you're tuning into our show, we're going to keep you updated here. We'll run the leaderboard at the bottom of the screen. We're missing one of our hosts. Christy is off doing Christy things
Are you
today.
serious? So. Are you really running the leaderboard at the bottom?
Yeah, man.
Isn't that amazing? It's on the bottom of the screen. We're basically like
we're here for the people.
Oh yeah, look at that.
We are here for the people. I'll keep it updated as we're going through here as well. So, happy Friday, guys. Courtney, you and I have had a few conversations this week, and AP, we want to get your take on the week in DC. But let's kick it off. Courtney, I just want to get your thoughts on what you saw this week. Anything, any head scratchers for you this week that you can share?
Well, head scratchers of the week. Well, I'll say highlight of the week. I got to see the updated version of the FinLocker technology, if I'm allowed to say that.
Too nice.
That was actually an eye-opening experience. And for me, I always tie it back to where I feel like a very broken record, but I will break my record once again. We have to find better ways to pull this whole customer journey closer to what is actually available from a mortgage infrastructure technology perspective. And, pulling it through to, I would say, stuff that we've seen in the last 2 weeks, particularly more activity with the FHFA, and seeing changes starting to roll there and understanding new leadership there. There are a lot of things that have been the same for a long time, and the yield is no longer there. I mean, if you think about mortgage being a reason, right, that our country was originally settled, some of these systems are hundreds of years old in terms of how they work. The technology for it is 60 years old. And, I don't know, maybe a shakeup in how these things are managed, even at the FHFA or other levels, is a good. Looking at things differently is always a good thing, and evolution is always a good thing. And I don't think that we've seen a lot of it in mortgage infrastructure and even the players that have been managing the marketplace.
Yeah, for us at FinLocker, we're hyper focused on a specific kind of place, if you will, in the consumer journey, and I pay a lot of attention to what's going on out there, especially when you have the Rocket, Redfin, Mr. Cooper news, and there's this playbook that's kind of coming together around around how we treat the consumer in the homeownership experience, not just in these parts of the experience. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how the industry continues to adapt to what I think is a consumer expectation for better, more modern and more useful experiences.
And yet we're still sending stuff in the mail.
Yeah. So crazy. It's
mind blowing. It's actually mind blowing. I was doing math this week about paper.
So I won't name my servicer, but it's not anybody that we've already talked about today. I got in the mail yesterday, I got in the mail a notification that my homeowner's insurance was going to expire, right? It renews every mid-April or whatever.
Yep.
And so I got this piece of mail, and by the time I logged into my servicing account, my portal, it was already, it had already been updated and refreshed or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are we doing here? That's just one small example of, something that's important, but what if it was like mission critical and I'm getting this, days after the information was actually.
I mean, even service transfer notices when loans are sold, the requirement is mail. And yet, at the investor insurer level, not only do they all have different rules, but none of them are aligned on, basic standards for what is acceptable in a digital world. And it's not what we need to, we don't need to spend 30 minutes talking about, we can talk about the masters, but it's just funny that, I think that there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of hesitancy to make changes, and the more that I'm watching what is happening in DC, and I don't like waking up one morning and losing my 401k, and then waking up the next morning and feeling like I'm going to be okay, and then the next day feeling like I'm not going to, okay, maybe we could do without the volatility, but I think that the core question, are changes required? I'm getting a little KP. I'm going to pull back a little bit. I'm going to bring it to 6.
No, we need it. We need that big Courtney energy.
Things over here in Detroit. No, I think things need to be shaken up a little bit. I was in a pre-panel preparation thing with a legacy female human in mortgage this morning who has been one of my mentors along the way, and in listening to the things that she was saying this morning, I was like, wow, I don't even identify with that anymore in the same way, and I think that is good. I think that it means that change is afoot. The question is, are we going to do the right things at the right time? Are we going to make the right investments? Or are we just going to keep playing the same damn playbooks over and over again, expecting delivery of good solutions? We have to invest in companies like FinLocker. We have to invest in things like digitization. We have to do our parts to make the bigger thing work, in my mind.
So Jennifer's weighing in. She is one of the, she is an expert in this space for sure.
Well, and she's dead nuts on until the agency, until everyone who buys our assets, who we deliver our assets to, make rules that say emails are appropriate, digital this or that is appropriate. I was a part of a deal earlier this week where one of the buyers wanted to exclude any asset that included Ron, one of the most forward-thinking players in the marketplace, and yet they're not going to buy digital. To me, it's just kind of.
So Courtney, I need to do a little housekeeping real quick. So Jen's here in Michigan. She's a Michigander with you and I.
Yep.
And I am extremely delinquent on meeting up with her. And so I am now going on the record, committing the three of us to do a meetup here in the great state of Michigan. So we are going to set that up.
I full support that. I fully ship that. I KP level ship that.
Let's do it. Okay, KP, let's get the man on the street, the DC DC feedback. You attended both, maybe all three. It was MBA advocacy, the Broker Action Coalition advocacy event, and I don't know if you popped in on your Texas event, but I think Texas was in town as well, weren't they?
They were, and they showed up. Very, very strong delegation. I think the most tables at the MBA were represented by TMBA. So I was going to sit with them, but my California tables needed help since our state's absolutely broke. So what I did not know is that when I went to DC that I would be on a roller coaster. I did not know that it was loop-de-loops and ups and downs and all that stuff. This week. But let me just say something. Courtney and I had a good exchange a couple months ago. We were talking about all the crazy volatility and how fast everything was moving in DC. And I just want to step back and say, I wore this shirt today. This is a little homage to one of our fallen soldiers, Kevin Delory. He was pretty much head of sales over there at Equity Prime Mortgage. And at the end of the day, the Lord giveth and taketh away. We lost Kevin this week. I heard about it. It was, he's a young guy. I think he's just barely 50, right? And I met him a few years ago for the first time at one of the AIM Fuse events, and he was smoking a cigar with Phil Mancuso, and Eddie Perez popped in and some other AEs, and I gave him a cigar. Even though we compete, we hire some of the same AEs every now and then. I gave him a cigar, and we just kind of broke bread and had a lot of respect for his battle. And Phil Mancuso. That whole group, they're up at the Masters right now. But then the Lord giveth too, right? So, Barry Habib's battle with cancer is in remission. And so I just, we have a saying, our CEO and founder, Paul Rozo, we like to prioritize everything here as our pillars, right? And one is our faith, our second's health. and then family, and then career. And so, health is everything. You can't do anything for your family or in your career if you don't have it. And so, just kind of let's put some guardrails around, our lives here, and make you think maybe less emotional, maybe more down to a 6 or less when we're talking about tariffs and all the craziness. Trigger lead bill is now a bill which has been introduced to Congress. It was very cool to be part of that. On Wednesday, the NBA team and TMBA force, they were there, and they were all on the Hill on Wednesday. And then we have a wholesale channel, so I was at all the Broker Action Coalition meetings Wednesday, and then that group took the Hill yesterday, and we were there. So I got pulled in as a ringer to go battle with 2 Democratic representatives in the House from the state of Virginia that were sponsoring the bill, and even on the last one had co-sponsored. And now that everything's so polarized in DC, everyone's gone to their corners, which we could talk about the budget framework getting passed. But, there's legislation on something that I think everyone universally agrees is it's a horrendous experience for consumers to get, dozens of phone calls and not knowing what's going on. I heard a story of a guy who was getting so many triggers that he blocked all unknown numbers and missed a call from the hospital telling him his wife was in labor and he missed his child's birth. Right. Oh. So, I told that story twice. So it's very promising that trigger lead reform could get passed this year because it is a bill, and it is in the House. Is in Congress. Now, there's other priorities, obviously. We were working on FHA reform and other things like that. But Congress is really trying to pass this budget, and all this flow of money is intertwined. Is the U.S. Treasury is it still the safest asset in the world after this week? And so what I would say is that, all these things kind of work together, and there's something called a Trump put, which is, I've talked about, there's the Fed put, there's a Trump put, eventually there'll be a sovereign wealth fund put once they get that going. But the Trump put is very live and in effect. When they saw the dislocation in the market and they saw a 386 10-year go all the way up to 455, that was complete dislocation of the safe haven asset of the world. So they stepped in within 12 hours and said, we're going to do a 90-day pause, except you, China, you bunch of cheaters. So, the Trump put is alive and well, and it doesn't mean things are stable and there isn't still volatility. There's a lot less of it. And so we'll see how it plays out over the next 90 days. But lots going on in D.C. I mean, the House lost 2 Republican votes and by a narrow margin. Every single Democrat voted to put $4 trillion of taxes on Americans, and all but 2 Republicans decided that they're going to pass one big, beautiful bill. So now the Senate and the House have to get together and do the details. This state will say, well, don't mess with my coal. A lot of people don't know that on Tuesday, 4 executive orders were signed by President Trump to fire up coal plants that were being shut down because of green energy policies in the last administration from President Biden. We need energy. We get coal from China, and those boats go back and take our goods back to China. And so some of the fees on those ships were called out as exceptions, even as the headline says 125% tariff. There's a lot of sausage making going on in the background, and I could talk about it certainly in the next 16 minutes. But things keep moving forward, and it's a brave new world. And I'm glad it's Friday.
Yeah, this today couldn't have come at a better time, given all the chaos of the week. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to keep our leaderboard up.
Stock market closes in 3 hours, so in less than 3 hours. So we'll get a little reprieve, everybody. You can shut that app down and watch our podcast over the weekend and get your head right.
Did you see all the coverage of the Masters and how people have to lock their phones in the lockers? And so all of the fanciest, richest people in the world didn't know what was happening in the markets earlier in the week. I thought that was kind of funny. Maybe everybody should just put their phones in a locker for the next couple weeks.
Speaking of lockers, Brian and I have been there to the Masters. We've enjoyed it. Thanks to good friends at RHMI. I went 3 years in a row, and they do check you in the door. Unless you go to the practice round, you can bring your phones and film everything, which is pretty cool. But I didn't see any Masters coverage, and I mean, it's been such a whirlwind, and I'm just trying to keep up on emo. I traveling back yesterday after being there since Monday it's just hard. And it's spring break. My wife's got 4 kids; they're hanging out, and I'm not here to help.
Yeah.
So I'm her cell phone that might have been put in a locker. I'm no help to her and the 4 kids who aren't in school. So life goes on.
All right, let's shift a little bit. Set aside the tariffs, the market. I'm starting to consistently get good feedback that the market's picking up, that activity's picking up, despite the Cedar Point roller coaster ride that rates have been doing. Courtney, what's the word on the street with CMG loan officers? Are they kind of feeling better, getting those pipes kind of filled up here?
Yeah, I mean, we're rolling in payoff and netted payoff land. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of that's how servicing people see origination spikes. Everyone, is it payoff and netted payoff time? Are we talking about we've had big waves of assumptions and PMI related cancellation, given the fact that home values go up, right? So that was what we were riding for a long time in servicing, and now we're back to payoffs and netted payoffs. I think that the activity is there. The consumer experience is still a problem always. Our loans are subserviced. It remains a problem, and we've actually servicing wise, people see folks paying off and refinancing away from servicers sometimes too. We sell to a lot of different players in the marketplace, and so we get all of the feedback through our loan officer network, which is awesome. And so we kind of have a good heartbeat on what's happening where. And there are certain products that we'll move away from, Brian, just because of the initial customer experience when it lands somewhere, because our LOs are so dissatisfied with where somebody else is picking it up. And, that's a big reason why Chris made the investment to have servicing in-house at CMG. It's not going to help the stuff that we have that's brokered out necessarily, but at least for CMG loans, we can, I would say, as close to guarantee as you can in the context of servicing a higher quality customer experience.
Yeah, I'll chime in there. I'm at PRMG. I'm copied on every single payoff request email, so
Nice.
I get a pulse. And one of the things we're talking about at the Broker Action Coalition is to try and do away with this 15 basis point hit that the GSEs tax on TPO loans, on wholesale loans. But I got to tell you, I see a lot more payoffs in wholesale than I do in retail, and the prepay speeds are higher, and they just are. And so, one of the things, of course, we try and then call the broker back, or if it's our retail originator, we try and get them to call back. Of course, we have trust engine triggers. We look at credit pulls and other equity alerts and stuff. And there are some great alerts out there. Total Expert's got some. There's a bunch. ADM there's a bunch of them out there. So yeah, we're on. Origination spike, but then so does the loss of loans in the portfolio. So servicers are working feverishly right now. But having said that, that goes back to the battle of originator versus servicer, and that battle rages on and will never quit. We talked about GSEs being spun private, and what's interesting is there's a gentleman, I'll keep his name hush hush because I think he had a private meeting, I believe Monday, with Mark Calabria, who's totally approachable, right? So former FHFA director. FHFA is the oversight regulator of Fannie and Freddie. He works now at the CFPB on GSE reform, and he is dead set on spinning out Fannie and Freddie private. And I think they're going to do it without an act of Congress, and they say it's going to take 2 to 3 years to do. So let's just say, hypothetically, whoever is in control of Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac when it's private, they go, yeah, TPO loans pay off. In fact, we think it should be 50 basis points. Who's going to stop them? We don't like FinLocker, so no FinLocker integration with DURLP anymore. Have a nice day. Going private has a lot of uncertainty as well, and so the MBA stance is when and if you go private, that there is a written explicit guarantee from Congress that the U.S. federal government will have the full faith and credit behind a private Fannie and Freddie. But if they don't go through an act of Congress, how do you get that explicit guarantee to backstop mortgage-backed securities in a private Fannie Freddie, which no private entity had enough money to backstop Fannie and Freddie conforming loans, or any loans for that matter, in COVID? And that won't be our last pandemic or world war or whatever else comes around. So one of the things by not going through Congress is that the U.S. Sovereign Wealth Fund, which I think is a beautiful idea, we finally make some money with our money instead of just give it away to everyone, have people who are 300 years old rip off the Social Security Administration to the tune of 400 million. Just one fraud group hit us for 400 million. But if you have the Sovereign Wealth Fund buying preferred shares of Fannie and Freddie private stock, that is like the explicit guarantee from the federal government. And so that could work out. I don't know the mechanics of that and how that will play out, but it's a very interesting topic that's kind of floating around out there. I don't really see it talked about much in the press, but it is certainly a way to get an explicit guarantee. Another topic of the week.
Yeah. What
9
else,
minutes.
guys?
9 minutes. We can't drop the mic in 9 minutes ago, dude.
No,
Come on,
not a chance. We've got to fulfill our advertisers' requirements. Today's show brought to you by Courtney.
Courtney.
You want me to? Yeah, I'll backstop this.
Yeah,
I would underwrite you too.
Oh, perfect.
Any day.
Would you underwrite the U.S. government with a 222% debt to income ratio?
No,
Absolutely not.
No, I kind of want to buy a goat farm and hide for a couple of years and come back, and hopefully I'll still have a 401k. That's a good? I think it's fun to hear. Quite candidly, everything that you were doing in DC this week, because the servicing folks go there next week, right? And so I don't know. It makes me wonder. The more that I am at a strongly sales-led mortgage organization, the more that I get to hang out with you guys on Friday, I'm kind of like, why are these things separate? Why do we? And I know some of the answers, but a lot of it, quite candidly, doesn't make sense. Things that have been in place for a long, long time, and a failure to bring them together at the end of the day.
Well, Courtney, what would be interesting is an industry event that was focused on the consumer experience. Just start with the event being centered around the consumer experience.
No offense, but I think that the problem with that is it's like just sales. It's like people selling stuff, right? At the end, and that's how people see it, because people, I think that mortgage operators look at some of that stuff as Black Knight and Sagent, please hit the easy button for me. I want to go to a single place. I heard that there's going to be a big RFP in servicing tech rolling out from some of the larger big box subservicers to say, hey, who's got an answer in tech? And there's what they're seeking is a single source provider for all of these things. And it just, I think it's unrealistic. I think it's a very mortgage ask, at least as I hear that it's rolling out, but it's one of those things where you're just kind of like I also heard this week, and I'll play a KP on this one, and I'll keep all the partners confidential, that DC is recruiting for a new head of enforcement of the CFPB. I think that's kind of funny. Right. Meaning, we saw, what was it? Was it this week that we saw, the backup on the regulation in the digital payment space, from a CFPB perspective. So I'm curious about what enforcement looks like for the next few years. I'm curious about, each of these things, but I'm most curious, and I'll remain curious and be the only one that cares about it and be fine with it, about the evolution of the guts of this thing. And, Brian, you got a force place, or you got an insurance notification, because even the insurance industry is moving faster than we are from an innovation perspective in mortgage. And that's just the truth. When the insurance companies are beating the mortgage servicers to sending you a notification about something, right, you know that there's a problem.
I'll add that not all homeowners are alike, right? So direct mail works for boomers, who are overwhelmingly homeowners in America and at the highest percentage and have the most equity. that, Brian's got to get his cohort, although I think Brian's probably still millennial, but he's got to get his cohort on FinLocker, right?
Yeah.
So, he's got to get him using stuff. The only thing I've seen out there that, universally works is, you guys know I'm part of trying to push, and we're rolling out Mesa, which is a credit card that gives you reward points for paying your mortgage. I mean, everyone looks at their credit card, like every charge that comes through. You might look at your statement once a month. You might open the email from your servicer. You might just throw away the direct mail. I read everything. I think I'm, kind of unique in that respect, but I agree. There's no one size fits all marketing. And it's very interesting. It's like, we have a strategy where we were servicing 95% during COVID because nobody wanted to pay. And we're like, we have our own money. We'll just take it. And that, end up being, a 9-figure windfall when we sold our Fannie book. But then you need your cash, to grow the rest of the time and take losses the next 2.5 years. Right. But, I'll say selling a loan to a servicer and letting that be their problem and taking cash off the table is a nice strategy. And so you just never quite, not every company has fully aligned originator and servicer. And even within those ranks, you're talking to different customers in different markets for different reasons, for different products. And so it is a very complicated business. And, all of our businesses try and juggle all of that, right? We try and juggle it all. And it's hard to do. I feel like a clown on a unicycle juggling at all times.
Hey, KP, I want to poke a layer deeper into Mesa. So I get a Mesa credit card. I line up my mortgage payments that run through it, essentially, right? That Mesa card becomes the rails that I run my payments through, and then I earn rewards through that card, right? Just like any other.
Well, it's actually, you actually don't pay your mortgage payment with the credit card. They verify that you made your normal ACH payment to your servicer, then drop reward points in your account.
Okay.
Whether you have the Visa or not. But then when you use the card for other stuff, gas, home furnishings, it's more geared towards home ownership. Like most credit cards are geared towards dining and experience. Although there's a lot of dining experience in there. And so, the bet with this platform is that they'll monetize it because first-time homebuyers spend 30 to 65 grand on things within the first year. Yeah, the first year of buying their house. And so put on a credit card that's going to give you rewards and is geared towards that kind of consumer. And then it's very sticky. I mean, I don't think I've ever canceled a credit card. I mean, I got a corporate card. I had my first Citibank MasterCard. They keep sending me emails to upgrade to this level and that level, and it's fine. And then I have my Amex. I've had my Amex since 05, and I upgraded to a better one in 06. And so that's it. That's all I use. And so I'm going to take on this card once they get this white metal, beautiful card that says homeowner on it with the PRMG logo. Once they finally send it to me, I'm going to use the shit out of that. So I think it's pretty cool that there's a credit card for us.
Yeah.
Everyone not named Rocket who's got Rocket card.
I was just going to say, when's the Rocket card coming out, right?
It's not for you. It's
right?
not for you. It's not for you. It's for them. And they don't want to give it to you. And so someone else stepped in and said, we're going to create, and that's not a knock on them. Good for them. Now they own 1 in 6 loans when that transaction is complete. So what's for the other 5 out of 6 loans? What's for originators doing first-time home buyers? Nothing. So at least there's something now, and it's in rollout, and I love it.
And on that card, so if I'm earning rewards, they're fully redeemable. They're not. It's not like restricted. I can't. I can only use these rewards if I do a mortgage through PRMG. Is it pretty?
Any mortgage.
Okay.
Your biggest bill. Your biggest bill. I mean, finally, that's never happened. So it's
maybe they get
pretty
more
cool.
rewards if they go to PRMG. That would be good.
Yeah.
Like
No. I mean, Mesa is. They let. I think UWM is rolling it out. I think Bayview is the largest service in America. I think they're rolling it out. So get on board. Get it up front as the originator, and check it out. It's for us. It's pretty cool.
I need to figure out how to make that offer through the FinLocker app. Well, that'll be a weekend takeaway. All right, guys, we're at the point of the show where we literally will be able to share the last word. And so, Courtney, we'll let you kind of close us out here today.
Ask questions about everything. That's all I got to say. I think that, there's too many things that have been away because they're away. And if you ask the question, I think 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that somebody was just doing the next thing and not paying attention to it. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a person answering the phone in mortgage or if you're a mortgage executive. Flip things over and see what we can find. I think that new models and new ways, the Mesa card, maybe that's the answer. The CMG all-in-one, which is a unique product attached to an account, like, why not, right? I think now more than ever, ask questions about everything.
Love that.
Yeah, I got to give the Chrisman commentary this morning a lot of love. They broke the story about, Zillow kicking out non-NMLS listings. I thought that was very interesting in saying, we're not going to aid and abet pocket listings and shadow inventory. We want you to do it to where more people can see it. And so, a gentleman in here asked a good question, who's next? I don't know that Zillow is for sale, but, yeah, I got to think, maybe someone big is looking at the Redfin acquisition and go, good idea. Let's buy Zillow, and then, that could happen.
No doubt. So speaking of Chrisman, and we'll close, this will be a great last word. Word on the street is that Elizabeth Warren's staffers were heard commenting that they read in the Chrisman commentary that Elizabeth cut short her planned 30-minute talk at the advocacy conference. And so, hey, people are listening, people are reading. So
I was there. I watched her speak. I mean, she spoke for 10 minutes. The first 8 were how tariffs in 100 days are the reason homes are unaffordable of decades of policy. But whatever. She's a very good speaker. I mean, she is. I mean, she's she doesn't like. She takes it personally. The CFPB, her pet project, is being gutted. And so I think, CFPB, well, you know what? There's still CFPB enforcement's being done and move forward. Yeah. It's in the news, it's in the press. And so, there's still bad actors out there. And the whole thing in the court case is whether 300 people down from 1,300, whether 300 people at the CFPB can function and carry out its mission. And the NBA is behind not canceling the CFPB because we do need, we need to have some kind of framework around regulation. So, she had a beautiful purple jacket and she got up there and she did her thing and, and then she rolled right out of there. So yeah, she heard, they were listening, and awesome speakers, awesome week all around for all the conferences up there.
All right, guys, we will be back here next Friday. Thanks for tuning in to this week's last word, and make sure you're back here next week. See you guys.
Have a good one.